Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I am Rouy from the events team of the Startup Club by 𝐓𝐶𝐞 I will be your host for today's event. The Startup Club by 𝐓𝐶𝐞 along with Innovation and Entrepreneurship Development Center of 𝐓𝐶𝐞 present to you a webinar on product development phases. The Startup Club provides a diverse platform exclusively to the students, the alumni, and the faculty members of the 𝐓𝐶𝐞 Institute of Engineering, wherein the mentioned can register themselves for free and avail important resources to build the startup right from its ideation stage to an up and running startup company. Our official journey began on January 2020, but you all know the COVID struck all of us very badly. But who can stop a bunch of enthusiastic studentpreneurs from growing? Within this pandemic, we built a community of 300 plus ambitious, aspiring entrepreneurs who have dared to dream big. We aim to establish a new entrepreneurial culture and an inclusive global startup ecosystem in the near future. We actively organize exciting and engaging entrepreneurial activities such as seminars, webinars, competitions involving TEDx speakers, industry stalwarts from tech, financial, and other trending industries. It gives me an immense pleasure as a fellow 𝐓𝐶𝐞vian, to introduce you all to our guest speaker, Mr. Arnab Ray, tonight. He is an alumni of the 𝐓𝐶𝐞 Institute of Engineering. Thank you, sir, for being with us. Today's event is on product development phases. This is to give the studentpreneurs a clear visionary on how to establish their ideas to feasible in-hand products and introduce to them the various checks and tests that are probable to be encountered in the way. So without any further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Prasenjit Chatterjee, sir, Dean of Research and Consultancy, 𝐓𝐶𝐞, Chairman of NISP Committee, to initiate the session. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, 𝐓𝐶𝐞. Good evening to everyone, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to the special talk on product development phases organized by the Startup Club by 𝐓𝐶𝐞 Institute of Engineering in collaboration with AICT NISP powered Innovation and Entrepreneurship Development Center. So basically, as we all know, that an entrepreneur is an individual who creates a business, a new business, bearing most of the risk and enjoying most of the rewards. The process of setting up a business is known as basically the entrepreneurship. Now, the entrepreneur is commonly seen as an innovator, a source of new ideas, goods, services, and business or procedures. Entrepreneurs play a key role in the development of an economy of any country or any region, using the skills and initiative necessary to anticipate needs and bringing some good new ideas to market. Now, one of the initiatives that the entrepreneurship focuses is on product development. Product development typically refers to all of the stages involved in bringing a product from the concept or idea through market release and beyond. Or in other words, we can say that product development incorporates a product entire journey. That is the complete process of delivering a new product or improving an already existing product for customers. And it can support many different types of products ranging from software to hardware to consumer goods and services. And there are fundamentally 7 stages for any new product development, including like idea generation, idea screening, then concept development, testing, building a market strategy, product development, market testing, and market commercialization. So I will not extend it anymore. So let us welcome Mr. Arnab Ray, who is an entrepreneur, management consultant, and MBA from SP Jain Institute of Management and Research, Mumbai, and a graduate from 𝐓𝐶𝐞 Institute of Engineering. He is an early stage investor, deeply involved in the startup ecosystem. He is the CEO and managing director at Array Innovative Services Pvt Limited, the umbrella company with a portfolio of 10 ventures. It includes the BPlan Experts, a dedicated startup consulting firm, which has helped over 1,800 startups, including the Crazy About Startups, PresentationGFX, Vezume, then Express.io, and iLogyx. So with this, and over to Arnab, and once again, welcome back to 𝐓𝐶𝐞.
Thanks a lot. It's a pleasure to be here. Um, it's overwhelming and very good to see all the fellow entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs from MCKV. I understand that we are going through a tough time, but let me tell you something. If you look at the history of entrepreneurship, some of the biggest companies and the greatest products were started in an economic slowdown. So let me tell you that if there is a time, if anybody asks me what's the best time to do a startup, well, this is the best time. So I encourage all of you to really follow your dreams rather than pursuing the typical corporate career. Always try to innovate and try to create opportunities for other people and eventually innovate to create amazing products that will actually help the mankind. With further ado, I do understand as we have a very short session on this, and product development is a very complicated subject. So let me just quickly share my screen and just let me know if you can see it. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. So product development roadmap. So let's keep this a session, interactive session. Like more participation that I have from you, all of you. I will know exactly how the session is going, and if you have any specific questions, you can literally ask anywhere between through the chat window, or wait for the session to get over. So this entire presentation is going to be divided into these blocks, and my aim of helping you guys for this presentation would be to walk you through each of these phases and help you with certain key best practices from the industry. So we start with ideation and feasibility. This is the phase we're going to obviously go through each of the phases in details. Then we have the business planning, then the concept and design, the minimum viable product, validation and testing, launch and the marketing, and then the monetization and the scaling up of your product. So let's start with the basic format. Let me go back and tell you something beyond this, before this, is given the fact that most of you are engineers and technically qualified, we have a habit of thinking under a particular silo, which is, might be only considering the technical aspect of a product development, but you have to understand that product development is actually a combination of the product itself, the technicalities, and very much integrated with the business aspect. So my presentation is gonna put stress on both of them, really. So and actually it will be a good thing for all of you guys to get an overview onto the business side of it. So yeah, how do you come up with ideas? Let's have a quick understanding on the chat window, and people, if you can just write, what are your sources of ideas? How do you come up with a product idea for a product? Any ideas? If I tell you to come up with an idea for a new product, how do you come up with an idea? Problems that needs to be solved. That's great. Yes. Anything else? Okay. Yes, we hear this a lot. Identify a problem, identify a pain point, but there are several other ways you can come up with an idea. Okay. So let me tell you, the first one is an accidental or spontaneous idea. Now, this is one of the ideas which hits you once in blue, one out of the blue, and you don't really have a process behind it. We all know today the microwave oven today. But when initially, when microwave was deployed as a technology, it was used for radar technology and defense purposes. It was not used for cooking. Now, this gentleman called Percy Spencer was trying to tune their microwave to understand what is the optimized way of identifying the object through the radar technology and everything. And while he was playing along with that in his lab, he found that the candy bar in his pocket melted. And he was curious about it. And that's where he discovered that the property of microwave, actually, when it hits a dipole, it breaks it apart by generating heat. And this property of microwave was used for cooking, and hence the microwave was born. So one side of it is that a certain idea can just happen to you. Like Gillette was actually a traveling salesman. And earlier, the razors used to look like knives without replaceable blades. So one day morning, he just woke up and tried to shave, and he found his razor had become blunt. And he was irritated, and he thought that there must be a better way of creating a product. There must be replaceable blades. And hence the earlier version of the razor was born, and eventually the cartridges and so on and so forth. And we all know the brand Gillette today. So these are some of the ideas just hits you upon. There is no process, there is no method or science behind it. But the next process of ideas are usually applicable for experienced professionals. Now, for example, you are working in a software firm for a long time, software services firm, and you have grown and become a very important person in that organization. And you know the clients really well, clients really know you, you have created your personal brand. And as a result, what would happen is you would go ahead and be in a position to start your own firm. And we see a lot of this happening in consulting ventures, law firms, advertisement firms, and services-based firms, really. So we call it the insider idea. When I, as an inside the company, become so confident and have the knowledge and the capability to have my own small shop, I would go ahead and do that. Now, the next idea is very important. I think it will be applicable for most of the people who are bitten by the entrepreneurial bug. If you already are aspiring to be an entrepreneur but do not have an idea, I call this process called the proactive search of ideas. Now, let us dig deep into it. What are the different process of proactive ideation? So the first is identifying the problem and solutions, which we all have agreed. Like, how do you identify the problem? You can either face the problem yourself, or you can ideally have somebody who is facing the problem who has discussed that with you. So look at the surroundings, like talk to people, understand, observe, and you will come to know there's a lot of problems. And just identifying the problem is not the thing. Like a lot of people does that, creeping about the problem. Like this is not working, that is not working. But a real entrepreneur is the one who's just doesn't give up on identifying the problem itself, but comes up with a solution. The second way to do is innovate, improve or innovate. Now, improve is if something is working in a particular way, you can improve it either by certain parameters, either lesser error, lesser cost, efficiency. It can be any process, it can be any software, whatever it is. Innovation is on the other side is called disruption. Now, when like imagine, cassette tapes, I'm sure you have heard about it, prehistoric times, and no more there. It was replaced by DVDs. And then today, DVD is also not really seen because everything is on the cloud. There used to be a company called Kodak, used to manufacture films and SLRs, not the digital SLRs. One of the biggest companies ceases to exist. Have you heard of the brand called Nokia? Mobile phones? You guys are too young, but I'm sure you have heard about it, right? So Nokia ceases to exist because they were disrupted. So one day Steve Jobs came and we all had phones. We had smartphones, we had touch screens, we had MP3 multimedia, we had internet, everything. But one day Steve Jobs came with a dual touch and an app store, which kind of disrupted the entire industry. We see disruption all around, and the age that we are living in, we are seeing disruption everywhere. Today, we rely on VoIP-based communications or call over internet than a normal telecall. The mode of conversations have changed. And given the fact that the age that we're living in today, because of the pandemic and the lockdowns and the lack of mobility, the basic phenomena of businesses are changing. Like normally I would have visited your college, or we would have had a seminar, and where I would have spoken on a dais, and you would have listened out there, and we would have met face to face. But that has changed. Businesses have changed. So when the world is going through a turmoil, a lot of innovations automatically come into the picture. The next one is niche ideas. What are niche ideas? You want to do very specific thing. Let's see, one of our ventures called BPlan. We do business plans, and we are the best at it. So basically, your idea would be to pick up a niche that nobody else is doing, or very few players doing, and ensure that you become a best in it. That is also another way of ideation. Another is copycat ideas. Like if you see Flipkart, Amazon, Ola, Uber, or Yelp, Zomato, there is something. But what usually happens is people usually observe internationally products and projects that has worked really well, and they copy that idea into their own geography. Now, while Flipkart is a great story in India, Rocket Internet has invested in Pakistan and Bangladesh through an e-commerce setup called Daraz. So this is how it works, in the sense that if something has worked in a geography, there's something can also be copied into your geography as well. Second is watching the trends. Like you will hear buzzwords like blockchain, AI, you will IoTs. So whenever there's a trend regarding that, you can always open a startup around it. And obviously, the trend might not last. Like there is a difference between fad and a trend. Fad disappears, trend continues. But in a short term, you will get quite a bit of visibility and quite a bit of clients, really. Then you have the visionary approach. This is a little complicated. When you are ideating, you are not talking about the problems today. You're going to talk about the problems in the future. And then you're going to create the business and the product for the future. Let's give you an example. We all know that tomorrow, petrol cars probably going to be there. Petrol and diesel cars, the typical, like fossil fuel. We are all moving towards EVs, electronic vehicles. Now, what is the problem in electronic vehicles do you foresee in the future? Now, suppose you want to go for a road trip, like from here, you want to go to road trip to, let's say, like you want to go to probably Goa, for example, and that's quite a bit of distance in between, and not everything is urban in between. So you'll pass through a lot of rural lands, barren lands, jungles. So how do you ensure that you get charges? So there needs to be charging station across the country. So standardized charging stations, which actually fill all kinds of different vehicles and sockets and ports and their amperage and their wattage, is the problem of the future. So you're going to start on working on those today, so that when you are done with the product and the future also comes, then we meet at a perfect amalgamation. Difficult, because you would need to be a visionary for this, but that is another way of ideation. Another one is focus on yourself. If you're good at something, focus on that. If you have a hobby, focus on that. Like if you're very good in, let's say, photography, make an app of photography, which will help other photographers. But understand this: there's a difference between hobbies and passion. Hobbies are something we do because there is no deadline, there is no commercial aspect to it, there is nobody breathing down our neck for the delivery, and we just enjoy doing it. I'll give you an example. A lot of us loves traveling. Now, when we go to a new place, we want to see the new architecture or new city, meet new people, have fun. Yeah, that's great. But somebody who wants to do a travel-oriented business and suppose becomes a tour guide, he's also traveling. But that doesn't mean that the person is going to enjoy as much as he used to do when he was traveling. Because while traveling, he had the free time and the freedom to explore everything. But as a tour guide, he is doing customer expectation management, event management, arranging for food, arranging for logistics, buses, like ensuring everybody is there, like a lot of tasks. So that's the kind of thing. When you are doing a work, you have deadlines and you have a lot of pressure on you. Are you still enjoying it? Then it's a passion. If you just enjoy because it's something you do, it's probably a hobby. Hobbies are not to be pursued as commercially. Let's keep it as a hobby. But passions, absolutely, why not? So I hope that clears how we can come up with an ideation. Now, next is, before you proceed, you must have an objective overview. Like, I meet a lot of entrepreneurs on a regular basis, and they're very attached to their idea. You know, a lot of people say that I have $1 million idea. I have a very unique idea. The thing is, your idea is probably not going to be unique because in the world, you know, there are probably 7 people who looks like you. So, given the fact that we have too many people on this world, if you're thinking about an idea, there's a very high possibility there can be several people in the world also thinking about that idea. So, ideas come dime a dozen. Ideas doesn't mean anything. Ideas doesn't have any value. Ideas is initiation, is a starting point. But what changes is the execution. So whenever you come up with an idea, be open to discuss with people. You know, like get people's opinion. You know, like some people will say very good, very good, very good. Doesn't really matter. You know, like yes men are not going to be productive. You want people who can critically analyze your idea and tell you if whatever they feel, all the weak points, strong points. Keep an open mind. You know, like there can be a lot of negative people who just will say nothing will work. So avoid them, but at least hear them out. Hear all of them and understand through what angle they're coming through. Because what happens in entrepreneur, we call it entrepreneur's myopia, is a short-sightedness. So what happens is, if you want to see your idea from yourself, you will always feel it's good, it's great because you have created it. But if you want to see it from other person's point of view, it might give a new perspective. Now, I'll be very honest with you. You know, like, forget about your ego. Dissociate your ego with your idea, and at the end of the day, tell your idea to everybody and be a devil's advocate. A devil's advocate is you attack your idea from all the corner. If you attack your idea from all the corner during the ideation stage, it will become stronger and probably will be a bigger business. So choice is yours. You want a bigger business or you want a bigger ego? There's no question about it. You want a bigger business at the end of the day. So forget about your ego and attack your idea and be very, very open about it. And most important thing is let's not assume that we can remember everything. Entire journey of product life cycle or a business life cycle is in years. We can barely remember things which happened yesterday. So keep an idea journal. And what is an idea journal, if you ask? This is how it looks like. Idea journal is primarily going to talk about different questions that you answer about an idea. You know, like, what is your idea? Is it unique? Why is it unique? Why do you want to do it? You know, the questions are already written out there. You can have a look into it. And don't worry about the presentation. It will be available in my blog, so don't worry about it. Anyways, it is recorded in the YouTube session. So try and understand the aspects of the different questions. So every time you go ahead and change your idea, update this journal. Do you remember those, like typical Hindi films, like when a hero is supposed to write a love letter to the heroine, like he is not getting the letter and the whole floor is filled with paper crumbles and everything. That's how it is. You will not hit upon the idea on the very first day. You will not have the perfect idea and the perfect way to implement it. So you keep on working at it. And that's how you come to a right idea, really. Now, the question automatically comes is, how do you choose the right idea? Now, a lot of people have come to me, given the fact that not a lot of people would have the educational training to do a proper feasibility analysis of the business. So I've created a framework, and this is freely available at the link given out there. It's called the Startup Ideation Framework. It is based upon the 6 criteria on your screen. It is a tool which asks you 30 questions on a multiple choice answers. And when you actually answer those questions, you have to answer them very honestly. Like you cannot be facing the entrepreneur's myopia or be delusional about it. If you answer these questions honestly, you will get a report card like this. Again, these report cards are again just going to be indication. You might have to work on something. You might have to look into something. That doesn't mean that guarantees the success of an idea or failure of it. It gives you a good point to start off with. So I would highly recommend that all of you go through this tool, and we can have an exercise later if you guys are interested about it. Anyways, the next question is, once you've validated and chosen the right idea, now the feasibility analysis comes to the picture. Feasibility means whether I can implement this product or not. And for that, what really matters is the market, the operations, the financial, and the risk and mitigation. Risks, obviously, there's going to be a market risks in the market, because whenever you have a business venture, there's always going to be a risk. Operations in terms of technology, processes, logistics, financial in terms of the total resources needed to go ahead and implement your product or as a business, and the market, whether the market is ready to accept or not. See, idea is to create a feasibility on basis of scalability, sustainability, and ensuring there is least of volatility. Do you want me to explain this again, or everybody's clear about it?
Sir, please explain.
I'm sorry?
Sir, please explain again.
Okay. So when you have a product idea, you want that product idea to be used by 10 people or 10 million people? Obviously 10 million people. So you have to understand, is your idea scalable or not? Or it's only for very few people? If it's for very few people, then it has to be the best in that. Nobody else is doing it. Second is sustainability. Sustainability means, are you going to be profitable? Are you going to be, the business going to exist over a long period of time? You have to make money for it. You have to have a monetization strategy for it. You have to have funding for it. Is it something worth looking into or not? Third is the volatility. You will have volatility, economic volatilities. You have seasonal volatilities. Like, for example, I want to go ahead and have a AC showroom in Shimla. Right. Now, let's be honest. It's not that Shimla is always going to be cold. It's cooler than Calcutta probably, or cooler than Bombay, but it's definitely have its own summer, where probably few days they will require the AC. But that doesn't justify me have a sustainable business, because it will have seasonal volatility into it. It's not neither scalable, because as probably since Shimla, I probably will sell some of them, but beyond that, as I go northwards or higher the altitude, I will sell less and less of them, right? So you have to attack your business through this idea and establish the feasibility. Hope that is all of you got it. Okay. If you have any questions, I'll again take it at the end of the session. Wow. Okay. Guys, remember I told you about the ideas do not change the world. The ideas are dime a dozen. The execution does. So if a lot of people are thinking about that idea, the execution would be the differentiating factor. But there is a step between execution and idea. It's called planning. Now, before actually diving and starting to code your product or build your product, it's very important that you create a business plan. Now, what is a business plan? A business plan primarily is going to be a roadmap for your business implementation, a documentation of your idea, and with the goals, the strategies, the roadmap, the whatever you're going to, and the financial requirements, everything is going to be laid out in the document. If it's for internal use, don't worry about making the document too special, but then at least cover all the corners. How would you go to market? How would you run the operations? How would you recruit? How many people would you recruit? What are the geography? What is your target segments? What do they think about? How would you sell to them? There are so many questions about it, right? Then obviously you have to understand the uses of a business plan is not just for funding. It's also for communicating to get co-founders, other stakeholders, and also very importantly, a project roadmap. Like it's kind of a guide for yourself, right? And everybody will have a unique guide for them. So this is the process of creating a business plan: ideation, market analysis, strategy formulation, and the financials. I'm not going to go into details because this is not a business planning session, but typical business plan would have these sections. I'll give you a couple of, not a couple of minutes, like few seconds to absorb this, and then we'll move. So primarily a business plan would have the what, which is marked in orange, how, which is marked in blue, and how much, which is the marked in gray. This is very important to have a handle around this, right? Now let's see how can implement your plan, right? Before you implement your plan, you have to understand that money cannot be negative. It can be only an Excel sheet, and there is a lot of things which will require money, Okay, so these are the metrics you have to understand. That business's primary responsibility is to be money based or usage based or traction based. If you get funding based on user base, that is great, but still you need money to sustain. So define your milestones and the success metrics like sales, revenue, activities, users acquisition, average cost per user, average revenue per user, and all of this, costs and profits and revenues. Identify them and then constantly monitor them. Second is you have to understand what is the funds at hand. You might develop a product completely on your own, but given the fact that you have to market it also, you need marketing budget. So you might not have development budget, but you have a marketing budget. Second is a burn rate. Burn rate is the costs that you're going to incur per month over a period of your startup. The runway is the amount of the months you can survive with the funding at hand. Very important, right? So you have X amount of funding and you have a C amount of costs every month. So your runway would be basically whatever funds you have minus the months into the cost, and that is your runway. So the equation is given with the burn rate and runway out there, and ensure that when you are starting, always start lean, go lean, and grow lean, which means don't print t-shirts of your brand. Don't try to incur additional cost which is not required. Don't get in a fancy office. Don't try to get your software hosted onto Amazon cloud. If it gets get for free, that is great. But don't try to incur a lot of costs. Go lean. Understand whether there's a market for it. And once there is a market, you will always get the additional encouragement and resources to go and scale it up. So these are the business and implementation phases. We have discussed quite a few. Very important proof of concept or the MVP is very important. Proof of concept is let's take an idea. Can somebody tell me a startup idea on the chat window? Anyone? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, let me give you an idea.
Yes, sir, yes.
I want to create a, let's see, a music app, right? So for that, I have to go ahead. Okay, I got an idea out here. Eco-friendly YRT effective COVID mask. Okay. Oh, it's not YRT, it's yet. I was wondering what is YRT. Okay. So, yeah, perfect. So, you would need the materials. You need to know how to sew it. You need to have the final product ready, and you have to understand whether it's effective or not, whether the costs define or not, and most importantly, is it something which is breathable or not, people accepting or not. So for that, you have to make the product. You have to make the prototype and give it to people for usage and get their feedback. Again, improve it and ensure that you have a commercial product out of it, which is not a prototype, which is a commercial version of the product which can be packaged and sold. And when you start selling the initial bunch, we are not talking about operational profitability. We are not talking about a huge amount of money. Initial 10 units, 100 units, you sell it to market and get the market feedback. Do they love it or not? Like Wildcraft has made great products, and especially masks. People talk about it. People share their thing. So yeah, are you able to create that emotion in the people or not? If not, then you're going to have struggle while scaling up. If you have to push your product unnecessarily through marketing channels, then it will cost a lot of money. But if you have a great product at hand, then it's easier for you. So proof of concept is actually establishing that for any product. And minimum viable product is actually ideally for software, but can be used for non-software products as well, is the basic functional version of your product. Not the complete singing and dancing. Like if there's a user login, that's good enough. Don't need Facebook login, don't need social login. User login can be good enough for an MVP, not for a final product. So just to get the basic functionalities into place. Got it? What is the proof of concept? What is the MVP? That's something which is very important, because this is something going to hit upon again and again in the session. Okay. Then organization formation, team, policies, stuff like that. Then go to market, very important. How do you go to market? What are the initiatives, costs according to it? Scaling up, and finally expansion and diversification. Now, obviously, we have talked about some of venture. If you guys need any professional help, I'm sure when you are initially, you do not need professional help at that point of time. Do your hard work. Do your use your metal to do the hard work. Go to the market and understand this. But at any point of time, should you require professional help to help you with the business plan or a startup inquiry, you should connect with my team at BPlan Experts. As you know, we have already helped around 1,800 startups, and is one of the world's #1 business planning firm. And we are really excited to work with new startups and help them grow further. So now at this point of time, I'm going to take a break and take some questions for 5 minutes, because till now we have been talking about the business aspect of it, right? The business portion of it, the business angle of the product development. Now we're going to go to the technical aspect of it. I'm not going to talk about technology, because you would know it very well, given that most of your engineers. But I'm going to talk about the technical management of the product. Okay. So, guys, have any questions? First of all, are you enjoying the session? Am I getting too fast, too technical? Is it boring? Okay, I got a yes for one yes for boring. Come on, let's have an interactive. Okay, not boring, exciting. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Any questions you guys have till now from the business point of view?
Sir, I have a question.
Sure.
Yes. So suppose sometimes we plan for some certain technical products which requires an MVP, but the MVP costs a lot of money for establishment.
Right.
So as beginners, absolute beginners, many people are not having that resource in hand. So what should they do? How should they go on and establish that MVP?
In that case, you should start with prototype. Create a prototype with readily available available products, cheaper alternative. Like, for example, if you're looking at an IoT device, right? Don't have to manufacture your own chip. Don't have to do your own VLSI design. You don't have to have your chip to be designed. You can always use a Raspberry Pi to mimic the entire IoT. Obviously, it will look bulky. It will look very bad. But then again, there's a cheaper alternative of doing it. If you're looking at a software prototype, you probably would need a lot of development to be done. But then again, you can always go for mock-ups, screen flows. And these days, you have no-code engines as well, at least to help communicate the functionality for it. At that point of time, not a lot of, if you have an excellent idea, that is extremely innovative and excellent idea, you can come to angels. You can come to people like me, like to help you in the initial tranche. And that you have to understand, that is 1 in a million cases that these kind of ideas get funded. Nobody really gets funded on an idea. You have to have an MVP or a POC on your end. But yes, having said that, if you have something very unique, amazingly done, there'll always be people who would love to partner with you, who want to have the technical expertise and the resources to help you through. In fact, we are launching an incubation center to help startups just like these to take them forward. But then again, we will only be able to help a handful of startups at a time, not a lot. So you can understand the competition is going to be very high out here. Hope that answers your question.
Sir, thank you.
Okay. If you have an idea about any startup and you are not an expert and professional in the field, then how to approach that idea? Okay. First of all, there is nothing called expert in a field. Okay. Flipkart founders, the Bansals, were not expert in, they never ran a Kirana store or a departmental store to actually have an idea of retail. They have worked with Amazon before that. It's great. Uber founder never really drove a cab. Right. It's not about the expertise in that field. You have to gain that expertise. Okay. Sometimes, as I told you, if you're an insider idea, you will be very proficient in your own field. But often innovation comes in from people who has no idea about that industry, because when you are in the industry, you have been trained and taught to do things the same way again and again. It becomes impossible for people to think out of the box, and that's why entrepreneurs should come in from outside the industry. But having said that, how do you get the expertise? That's where the hard work comes in. Your learning curve should be as high as anybody else. Now, I'll give you an example. I'm not boasting about it. I'm not a coder. I really don't do a lot of coding, but I love coding. And technically, I would literally take 5 days to learn any kind of a programming language, because the basics of algorithms are pretty clear. You get the point? Getting hold of a tool is very easy. Like, you should have people like that in your organization as well, whose learning curve is very high. Like, just get a book, get online. Firstly, knowledge is free today. Everything that you know about is already there. That's the first one. Do your own work, Google, and attend some courses probably. Second is get an expert. If you are not good in selling, like for example, that's something which requires a lot of training and a certain level of conditioning, and you can understand probably you're not a salesperson, and you should partner with a person who can do that for you. If you're not a very creative person, you're very technical, but your designing skills are pretty bad, then you should have an interface guy or a lady with you, partnering up. So that's where the co-founders come into the picture with complementary skills. And mind you, I can assure you, it's almost like this. 1 year in a startup is almost like 10 years in a job in a company. I'm not saying that job in a company is easy. It's just the fact that in startups, it's a chaos. Nobody will tell you anything beforehand. And just because, and trust me, just because you are a student, you will not get a handicap in the industry. Like, for example, tomorrow, if you want to start an e-commerce, or let's say grocery e-commerce, do you think Big Basket will tell you, acha, let him get some market because he's a student? Or let her get some market because she's a young person? Do you think that will happen? Absolutely not. What will happen at the end of the day is they're gonna crush you. So the very first day you are in a deep sea fighting the sharks. So as a result, you have to learn everything on the go. And that's why your learning curve is very high. Your exposure is going to be very high. And that's why, it's challenging, no doubt about it, but equally exciting. Okay, any further questions? Okay, so let's move on with the thing. My screen is visible here, right?
Yes.
Excellent. So these are the phases of a product development from a technical angle. Okay, first is the concept brainstorming. You have to brainstorm your concept first, and then goes to the product designing part of it. What is the audience representation like? How many of you are engineers? How many of you are aware of software development life cycle? Majority, can I assume that?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
so,
sir.
like, all of them are mostly, like, we are all engineering students. We are all from MCKV.
Excellent. So all of you know software development life cycle, the process of developing a software. You have agile method, you have Scrum, you have waterfall, old model or prototype or a spiral, incremental, throw a prototype. There's so many models of development. That's great. So this is a design of the product, and then you have the coding and the development. Then you have the testing, rollout, and the scaling up. So we're going to talk each of them in details. Okay. Starting with brainstorming. How do you brainstorm for an idea? And that's why I always say, 2 is better than 1 and 3 is better than 2. Having a team is great, especially in these kind of steps. So how do you brainstorm? So take a whiteboard, and for example, you want to create a product. You start writing down the features the product would have, the modules the product would have, and put it up in the poster like this, all across the board. Forget about understanding it. Just whenever you come with a feature, put it. There is no stupid feature. There is no bad or good feature at this point of time. Just put it on the board. Once you have put it on the board, now the time is to come is you have to identify the core. What is very important, without which the software or the product or the hardware will not work, right? When you're identifying the core, that you do is you draw a box on the set and put the core of the ideas and get rid of the rest of them. When I say get rid of them, from the board, but obviously file them somewhere for future references. So once you have got the core features of that idea, for the MVP I'm talking about, the functions, the functionalities, then now it's time to sort the group and related features, right? Like login will be related to social login, and social login will be looking to encrypted authentication, OAuth. Profile would be with updating profile. Lost password would be with login. You get the point. Like these are the features would be grouped together. Then what you do is you have different boxes, and we are calling it modules. So when you're talking about the, let's see, group 1 is the login module. So put all the features of the login into group 1. Group 2 is the user profile module. You put all the features related to user profiles and thing. Group 3 is a transaction module, like that. Payment module. There are so many modules depending on the kind of application that you're going to make. Right. This will help you to organize your thoughts. Otherwise, it will be you will be running like a headless chicken. You know, you will do this, you will do that, you will do that. That is not the way to really do a product. Yeah. Second, once this is done, the brainstorming, then next step is designing. Okay. The designing is where you do wireframes and mockups. There are tools, several tools. You can Google it. Adobe XD is a great tool for mockup development. They can be Dribble as well, and they can be. There's so many tools really. Sketch, PenUp, or something like that. Axior is one of them. Whichever you get free. There's so many free of costs tools and everything. Or forget about like all of this. You just use a Microsoft PowerPoint probably to do your mockups. Doesn't really matter. Wireframes, the left one is a wireframe which talks about what goes where. On the right side is actually the graphical representation of your screen, right? Now, one of you have just asked the question, what if we don't have the technology in-house to implement a particular thing? Like, for example, GPS tagging and implementation is not something you can do on your own, and you don't have the money to hire resources from outside or outsource it. Show it as a screen. So that we get to understand, okay, at this screen, this is going to be the thing, right? And then whatever investment can come in at the point of time. Again, it has to be very unique for investments to come in. Now, once the wireframe and mockup is done, then the algorithms comes in, the deployment comes in, the architectures comes in. This is going to be a little technical, and you need to have a technical person in-house, whether it's an IoT hardware or it's a software product. Now, the process to do these things is you have to have the high-level design, you have to have the low functional design. High-level design and the overall, what are the different things I'm going to have in the software or the hardware. The functional design is, from a user's point of view, what is that needs to be seen, how it will interact. The low-level design are the algorithms. Then you have the modules and the algorithms inside the low-level design. The database design is very important. The object class design is important, so they can use those objects again and again. C++, everybody remembers objects, right? So defining it advanced is very important, because otherwise you will be keeping on either making multiple objects which is redundant or not reusing the assets properly. And deployment and integrations is very important. You need to plan what kind of programming language, what kind of servers you're going to use, and very important, the capacity planning. If you do not have capacity planning for the MVP stage, then the initial stage, then the scaled state. It's very important to understand these. If it's too technical, don't worry about it. Just Google them, and probably you need to learn about it, or I'll take them in this sections. We have another venture in PresentationGFX, which technically helps people to help them with product and marketing and stuff like that. So if you want to partner with us, you have a great idea, I'll be more than happy to have a look into it, and probably we can develop it for you. Right. Next comes is the development, right? Now, a lot of engineers would start at this stage. And that is the biggest sin you can do as a product development. Whenever I talk to engineers, and that not all engineers, that's something which has been seen a lot, that because we learn technology and we are in love with technology so much, that the moment we are talking about a product, we think technology. But that's not the case. A product from a user's point of view is that black box, how I interact with that black box. I'm sorry? Okay, black box. So let me show you a graph, okay? This is something which is going to be very interesting for you guys. This is what the ratio of individual phases should be. The conceptualization would be that much. Then designing planning has to be very, very in-depth. More you spend time in design and planning, easier it is for you to do the development. And the testing and management is also very important. Now you understand development is probably not the most important phase out here, right? And that should be a surprise to all of you guys. Oh my God, we have been learning for 4 years development and everything, and development is not a phase. No. See, anybody can code, right? Anybody can build a bridge. But because you have engineering into it, which means the bridge has to withstand loads of multiple trucks, multiple freights, buses, cars over a period of 40, 50 years. And that's where the term engineering comes into picture. Development today, and trust me, in very few years, there is no room for coding. If you're developing a product in our WordPress architecture, there is no coding. Everything is drag and drop. If you're using no-code systems, everything is drag and drop. So coding is not very important. So development is definitely important. That's the realization of a product. But development is secondary to the planning. In planning, I'm talking about how would you deploy, what are the modules, what are the features, what are the algorithms, what are the classes, what are the data objects, what are the data points, your ERDs, DFDs, all of these diagrams, use cases should be defined so well that your development becomes like this. And it's very easy to do that. And trust me in this. This is something a lot of engineers fail to move from a coder mentality to an engineering mentality. So it's very important. I'm stressing this point of view. Probably you will realize it if you do not agree with me today. I'm sure probably 10 years down the line you will agree with me. But given the fact that I've seen quite a bit quite a bit of time in this industry, you can trust me in this and start believing in planning. Okay. Okay. Next is how do you do the UI/UX? Okay. Now you have to understand that you have to design your product for humans and not for engineers. A particular things work like this way. Okay. That doesn't mean that users should be allowed to do that. What I call is the methodology is called the idiot-proof development. You develop a product in such a way that nobody has to ask any question, how do I do this? Right? This was not the case earlier. Earlier softwares were made and a book was made after that to learn that software. Today, you don't have a book for WhatsApp, right? Do you have a book for Facebook, how to do Facebook? There is a book for Facebook marketing because there are tricks and trades into it. But do you have a book how to do Instagram? Obviously not, because it's easy to do. Have you ever come across a book called How to Uber or How to Zomato? No, because softwares today are aesthetic, which is good looking, intuitive, which is easy to interact with. They uses traditional practices of product development, and simple. They follow a methodological less is more. That makes the UI very simple and easy to understand. Anyways, moving forward, these are the framework of choosing the right framework and programming language. Okay. You should never say that I know Java, so I will employ Java. No, that is not how it works. Okay. Like it will almost be like this, you go to a marriage hall and you tell them I only know death metal and I'll sing that in a Bashurat. Obviously, no, that will not happen, right? You have to customize your preference based on your requirement, not on your knowledge. And trust me, if you have a very strong idea of your algorithms and deployments, learning a language is very easy. And let's be honest, Stack Overflow is always there, right, to teach you. So what are the things you should consider while choosing a language and a framework? Scalability is very important. Today, you might build an interface for 10 users, but can it be scaled up to 1 million users? Learning curve, in the sense, how easy is for me to learn this technology, or how easy is for anybody to learn this technology? Is it too complicated? Ease of deployment, can this technology be deployed across different servers, or I have to have a very specific server for it? Resource availability, in terms of knowledge resource as well as human resource. Can I find a lot of coders into it? Like, for example, today you want to see that I want to create a product in AngularJS and React.js. Have you heard about these terms, these technologies? React.js.
Yes, sir.
So, but when you go to the market today in Calcutta, especially, you will not find resources. So your dream goes for a toss. So what will happen? So you have to ensure that it is fitting to the market. Then you want performance and security. Very important. Last thing you need in your startup is a lawsuit. And very important, how mature is the developers community? Because developers are amazing group of people. They are always ready to help each other. Just like startups. If you ever go to another entrepreneur, they will always ready to help you. That's how developers community has to be matured enough. So choosing a Python makes a lot of sense. Then probably, let's see, Ruby, which is not that matured. But again, yeah, Ruby is pretty mature. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure about not so matured languages. Wolfram probably is not very community driven. But whatever, you get the point, right? When you're doing the coding, now understand this. If you guys are students, there is a huge hell and a heaven difference between coding for your academic framework or your projects versus a real life product. What are the differences? You have to have an intuitive structure of coding. You are graded on the output in terms of your classes are concerned. Here, output is immaterial. Output has to come in. That's a given. You have to have a structure. You have to have standardized naming conventions, standardized way of coding. You have to have structured way of coding, and you have to have a modular way of coding, right? You have to have understand scalability and performance. I talked to you about the bridge phenomena, right? I can do a same piece of code which might take 10 milliseconds or one might take 2 milliseconds. Now you do understand when million transactions are happening at a time, 10 milliseconds is 10 million milliseconds, which is a huge wait time. So obviously I need to understand scalability and performance right from the very beginning. Asset reuse. If you have already created an object, reuse it. If you have already created an object, use inheritance and to extend it. You should have optimized coding in the sense that the code should be, the algorithm should be optimized, the best fit for that. It should take the lowest server resources and the less number of executions. And most importantly, document and commenting. When you are doing as a coder, you don't like documenting and commenting. Great. But few years down the line, when you are trying to revamp that module, you'll be clueless. And then the only possibility that you're going to have is throw away that module and rebuild it again. Hence, you will incur costs. As a business, that is a bad thing to do. So documenting, commenting, and all of these things so you should always remember that code for the future reuse and minimization of work, not for today. Okay. Next is how do you use blocks, codes, and what do you want to use? Especially for MVPs, you have to understand what do users care about. Users doesn't care about what is the programming language that you use. They don't care about what is the complexity of your code. They don't care about this. They look at the functionality. Does it work the way it is supposed to work? Usability. Is it easy for me to use it? And performance. Is it fast enough for me to respond to it? Very simple. Nothing more than that. From a business point of view, you have to look at the legality. Then say that you should not copy somebody's code who would actually give you a lawsuit. Second is security, because if you actually your data is broken, your reputation will go down. And time and cost is very important for an organization. Now, what are the coding resources would you have when you start? You can always do custom coding, like start from scratch. Great idea, but the most time-consuming one. Next, you have available scripts, free and paid. Okay, you can do the research. You can take them from the market and use it. Some are good, some are bad. You have to do your own research. You have open source projects, right? There's so many open source projects, GNU projects that you can utilize and customize your product. You have plugins and frameworks already available in the market. You have code blocks and snippets available in several GitHubs and Stack Overflow. And I'm talking about from a software point of view, and hardware has a different set of things, but very similar understanding of this. You have APIs. So which one would you use? From a developer's point of view, you have to understand the manageability of the modules and standardization of code. Which should I use? Which one should I use so that I can easily manage my code? Second, resource usage and performance and security. Which code blocks will allow me to have the most efficient system in terms of performance and security? And very importantly, how can I debug the system? Suddenly, if a bug comes in, if I buy a script, is it coded in a particular way so that I can debug the system, or it is just another garbage piece of coding that, like, either it will work or it will not work. There is no question of debugging it. So you cannot lose that money. So considering all of them, your team should take a decision on what are the components of the portion you need to buy from the market, you need to borrow from the market, you need to copy from the market, and you need to build on your own. Clear? Okay. Now next is environment configuration. So technically you have to understand that not very first day you're going to host it on Amazon. Amazon cloud is extremely expensive. There are so many alternatives, trust me. Now, you have to understand the requirements in terms of capacity, server resources, features, scalability, security. Then you have to plan it. In a sense, for the MVP, I will need this. For the first 3 months, I will have this many users, so I'll need this. After 6 months, I'll have this. After 20 this. After this many users, should move to a good cloud, either in Google or in Amazon. So you should have a plan and budget according to it. And also you have to understand, do you have the capability? Yes, you might understand how Amazon cloud works, but can you configure it and debug it overnight if something goes wrong? Or would you have the money to hire an Amazon administrator? Probably not. So start small, start lean. So market offerings in terms of servers, you got shared VPS, cloud, managed cloud, CD, and storage blocks. Don't worry about it. We have a venture which has about 9.3 million users, and every minute we have 30,000 people accessing the media content called Crazy About Startups. It is working on a cloud, managed cloud setup, not on Amazon, because for us it is the best way to do it. So everybody will have a best way to do it according to your team configuration, your budget consideration, and this phase of the startup that you're in. In terms of MVP, you have to figure out what are the things you need to consider. Again, scalability, budget, and most important, the migration impact. In the sense, once you have the MVP and it is working fine, now you have to scale up. How easy it is going to be to migrate from one interface to another interface, right? Great. Then you have scaling up. This is where you develop capability in-house or associated affiliates. You do impact analysis for every release. Migration is a very important thing, and business continuity. In the sense, at any point of time your main server goes down, you should have a business continuity plan as well, or a disaster recovery plan. You'll hear about it. I'm just touching upon all of these things so that you get a platform of understanding what it is. Okay. We have discussed the concept, product, and coding. So the testing, rollout, and releases are pretty much self-explanatory. Not going to put a lot of stress into it. But you have to understand, while you are testing it, you have to understand that for a product which is mass-based product, if you are making a product for masses, people, B2C, then the best way to do it is release an alpha to a closed group of users, then release a beta to another bigger group of users, get the feedback, solve it, and then release it a commercial version. But if you're doing it for B2B, that is primarily you're selling it to business, then you should always identify 2 or 3 companies that you're going to work with, pilot run with. You're going to call it the alpha pilots. Then automatically you will call it a larger set of companies called the beta pilots. And then you're going to have the commercial version. You'll see all of the people that do this. Okay. When you're doing rollouts and releases, you should have a phases and everything. By the time you reach there, I'm sure you will have the capabilities in-house assigned to take care of all of them. And scaling and diversification is something which is going to follow up, and there's a lot of challenges out there. So I'm not going to talk about this. Let's focus on the first three, because for startups, those three are very important. Okay. Any questions till now? Okay. Let me quickly finish. So I have come to the end of the content of the presentation here. These are the few resources I would recommend. Crazy About Startups. If you want to know about startups, what is happening in the market, like what there's a lot of entrepreneurs would write out here. You can network with startups. I think we have a network of about right now 6,800 startups in the framework right now. Mentors, investors, and everything. So it's a good platform for any entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs to hang around, and it's all free of cost. Second is, I have a YouTube channel where I speak about a lot of things for young entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs or existing entrepreneurs to help them out. Like given the fact that I love helping entrepreneurs, something I am crazy about startups. That's why the name of the Crazy About Startups. So I think it's if you like the content, you can subscribe to it, and I would try to upload more content as and when come. I also write on a blog which is specifically for business and startups, different aspects of it. And I write on the blog and also write on several other mediums internationally on India as well, to get a glimpse about the latest things happening, understanding certain subjects. You can go out there, and obviously you will get my contacts from there. A little bit about the company, since you guys have known, I'm not sure if you have known about us. These are the 10 ventures that we have. We are a 13-year-old company, and we are really happy that we are one of the debt-free, profitable, and we have never had to depend on funding. And yeah, one of the most progressively growing companies in this landscape. And we are always resolute to create innovative products. The latest products is going to launch in a couple of weeks, called Expressio. It is a platform which is a presentation platform, works across all devices. Excited about it. So if you guys are interested, I'll give you guys an update and check it out and give me a feedback. I am one of your alumni. I am probably the second batch. I'm the second. I'm from the second batch of MCKV, and quite a wonderful journey. I actually got placed into a typical software company after that. I worked with few companies over the years, and then I started up about 13 years back. These are my profiles. I also serve as the president of Indo-Israel Chamber of Commerce, facilitating trade between UAE, India, and Israel. I'm also involved with the Government of India Startup India program as a startup mentor, and also with Founder Institute in Silicon Valley and Wadhwani Foundation, NEM. These are some of the awards that we have won over the years. There's only a few of them which I could put in out here. And I have the regular association with different B schools and different technology colleges, either through judging business plans or helping them out or taking workshops or conducting sessions like this. I'm really happy that, this is the first time I'm doing it for my own college. And kudos to the Startup Club, and wish you all the best. I'm really happy that a lot of these kind of work is happening. If you guys need to connect, those are my social media and everything. And again, if you really want to explore more about startups and my thoughts on startups and my experience, visit my blog and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Probably it will help you to understand all of them. And if you really like the content, share it across. And those are my social media handles, my emails. You can contact me out there. Given my availability is pretty limited, I will try to respond to you as soon as possible. Thanks a lot, and I'm ready for any questions, really.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for such an insightful talk. Now, I would like everyone to shoot their questions. If you guys have any questions, please unmute yourself and ask directly. You can also comment on YouTube, and our team will bridge the gap between the YouTube and the Google Meet. So any questions, please go ahead. You can also use the chat box if you want to, but it would be appreciated if you unmute yourself and ask the questions directly.
Okay, so here's a question from YouTube. It is by Sushant. He's asking, why is that most startups fail? What is your opinion on this?
Yeah. Very interesting question, Shushant. See, the nature of the game is such that, there is startups will always see a lot of failures, because at every point of time, there's so many things which can go wrong. While you are starting up with an idea, you might not be well aware of the fact that somebody else might implement that idea. Even if you're working on that idea, somebody else might create a better idea out of it. The economy might not be suitable. Your founding partners might not be suitable. You might not have the resources to pull through. It sometimes can be very depressing for an entrepreneur to run through these really tough times. So there's so many things that can go wrong at every step that, the startup success is a miracle by itself. But as I told you, when things go wrong, we usually ask the question, probably we are doing the wrong things. But have we ever asked the question that probably we are doing things the wrong way? So that's where the difference is. A relentless startup entrepreneur would attack a problem from multiple angles, and they will keep at doing it. And even if they follow all the procedures and everything, there's also probably the market isn't ready, or the luck is not on their side. As simple as that. There is a factor called luck. Also, I believe that luck is the intersection between opportunity and preparation, said by Stephen Covey. But yeah, things might go wrong. Like, I'll give you an example. Rovio, the company which made Angry Birds was a 50-second attempt. They were almost bankrupt. So hadn't they thought that let's put our effort another time, just one last time, they probably be a failure. And it's okay to fail. We should never be, our society structure is such a way that, has created the voodoo on failure. Absolutely not. Failure means that you have approached a problem, you have given your heart and soul to it. There's an amazing book by, I think, 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐒𝐭𝐫, I guess, called Before Starting Up. It's a book about all the things about a startup from a failed entrepreneur's point of view. And trust me, I would hire a failed entrepreneur any day than from a most educated person, because failed entrepreneurs, again, I told you, learning curve is going to be very high. So yeah, so we should not have the failure as a voodoo. And very importantly, it is but the nature of the game is that you're going to fail it, because there is so many opportunities of failure.
Thank you, sir. I hope your answer is...
Yeah.
You got your answer. So, any more questions? Please go ahead. You can also use the chat box if you want to.
Hello, sir.
Right.
Yeah. Sir, I want to ask that how to foresee future means how to see what technologies will be useful in the future, how to just be future ready so that we can build something that will be useful in the future, and then we get the market for it and our startup gets a boom in the future. So how to be future ready?
Okay. One thing, 𝐓𝐡𝐞, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There is. Can I correct your question, because your question is wrong in one single part? You use the word technology. See, you should not care about the technology being future ready. Your product should be future ready.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Technology is just an enabler. The programming tools and everything, these are enablers. Okay, you're going to change it again and again and again and again, right? Question is, how can you be future ready? Is very simple. Okay, you have to understand and read about it in the market constantly. You need to follow this market. Your exposure should be very high, right? You will see, if you're reading it about in the proper mainstream magazines and newspapers, you understand you're too late for it. If Economic Times is covering a startup, you already know you're too late for that industry. But there are specific blogs about startups. If you're talking, you can hear, for example, Crazy About Startups is one of them, where you can talk, where you can learn about the latest of the things that is happening in the world, right? There can be so many other blogs and bloggers talking about the newer things that is happening in the world. So you have to read a lot, you have to be exposed a lot, and you have to be a part of a community of people who will feed your curiosity with all of this information, because it's impossible for a task to be alone to do this. And that is something which is very difficult to have, but once you have it, hold it very near to you. Always try to surround yourself with smarter people, smart group of people, and positive group of people who talk about ideas, not people. Right?
Yes, sir. Got it.
Any more questions? Do we have any more questions? Please go ahead.
So while establishing a startup, sometimes the ideas, like we generally do not go on a very innovative idea, but we suppose want to bring a change which is there in a specific product or in an already established product. So that time what we fear is we might get a lot of competition. So how to keep that fear of competition away
Okay.
from the beginning?
Great question. Okay. Remember I showed you a slide about PresentationGFX about helping people in marketing and stuff like that. Let me go back to the slide if I can. You remember this slide? I'll give you a history of this company. We were not a creative company or not a technology company. We were a consulting company, right? What happened was we wanted to make, when we were doing business plans, we were trying to make pitches for investors. And we realized that the presentations looks really boring with bullet points and the clip arts. They're ugly and they do not communicate the idea. So there must be a better way. So we started thinking, we started approaching people. We understood that design houses did great design, but did not understand the business aspects of it. And business houses or copywriting houses would write amazing content, but they were still using the traditional methodology. We found some initial visionaries who wrote about all of these things in the other part of the world, but there's not existing out here. So idea was very simple. We will make presentations better, right? Everybody uses PowerPoint. And the idea was everybody uses presentations better. We were the first one to do it in India. Today we cater to companies like Google, Samsung, Oracle, and everything. But right after we started, about 30 odd companies started in the same field within a couple of years because we became very popular, right? And that's the nature of the game. Whenever you have a product or a service becoming popular, it will attract other customers. Now, when it's a service, there are only three things the customer really want: product quality, service quality, and pricing, right? Now, you don't have the cheapest in the market, the value perceived for pricing. There can be no excuses for that. We got into companies, really large companies, because somebody refused to cater them over the weekend. We said that we will do that. Until now, we do that. Absolutely. So at any point of time, one is ensuring your service quality, product quality, and your pricing and everything. You could never be complacent about it. You should never be overconfident about it, and ensure that you keep the standard. You will see a lot of restaurants, when they have amazing tasty food, the moment they become popular, they start giving crap food, right? That's where they become complacent, overconfident, taking their customer for a ride. Never do that. And second thing is, while others can copy your existing business, but they cannot copy your ideas tomorrow. So constantly innovate and constantly go to the next level. So while, trust me, all of you guys can start a company like PresentationGFX tomorrow, but we have already innovated to the next level. We are launching a new product and multiple other things, right? So you cannot match our future. So innovation, constant innovation, having a right set of people, and not compromising on the quality and your business processes and customer-focused strategies is going to ensure that you're going to have sustainable business. But let's be honest, if you want low barriers to entry, then the only thing can be possible to have a monopoly about something, which is not a very good for the economy, neither it is for the society. So it's okay to have competition. In fact, it's better to have competitions, but ensure that you are the best at it. And if you at any point of time falter or become number 2 or number 3, analyze, criticize, understand what went wrong, learn from your competition, and go up. Hope that answers your question, yeah?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I do have a personal question. So,
Right.
sir, so what made you change your path? You were an engineer before. So, what made you choose entrepreneurship over engineering? What was the story behind Array Innovative? What was?
Well, while I was in MCKV, I was in electronics and communication. I chose electronics and communication preferably because I had all the 3 seats open at that point of time. I actually had other options open in the other colleges, like civil and construction and everything. I wanted to study electronics because it fascinated me. But when I got into electronics, I realized that it's not very interesting for me anymore, especially the analog electronics and electricals. I didn't find any interest to it, but I found amazing solace in coding. So I used to code my happiness out throughout the 4 years. I didn't care about getting grades or something like that. Getting grades is easy. I just wanted to create products, codes, and everything. I immediately got placed from college into TCS. That time, those days, TCS barely recruited. In our batch, I think TCS recruited about 7 odd people. Not like these days where they recruit hundreds and 60s of people. Very, very selective recruitment that used to happen there. So while I was in TCS, I had an amazing experience. Firstly, I chose Bombay because I never wanted to come back to Calcutta, not because of anything else. It's because I have heard that TCS Bombay is very dynamic, and it is dynamic. I got to be a module lead in 3 months. I was a part of a center of excellence. A center of excellence is a group of team which does R&D on products. I was a part of a business intelligence center of excellence in Bombay, working with the existing chairman of Tata. So yeah, it was an amazing exposure. I got promoted in 3 months and everything, and it was an amazing experience. And then, but my aspiration for doing an MBA was always there. In the first year, I remember getting into one of the top colleges, but it didn't work out because at that point of time, IIM papers were leaked, if you remember, and the re-examination, whole fiasco. So, however, I always wanted to get an MBA because I thought understanding technology is great, understanding business is something all important, because from very early in my life, I wanted to have my own business. Don't ask me why, stupid things people say when they're young, I want to be a pilot, I want to be a military man. I wanted to be the richest man in the world, as simple as that. No, not technically richest man, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was always fascinated by these people. I wanted to create. So, while I had a lot of opportunities to go abroad and everything, I always wanted to work on the ground itself out here. Then SPGen happened. SPGen was one of the greatest experiences of my life, to be surrounded by some of the brightest people of your batch, an amazing environment for learning. And then after that, I got placed into some of the biggest companies like American Express, and then investment banking called 𝐓𝐿𝐕 Investments, Infosys Consulting, ICICI Group. But everywhere I was getting very bored. I was to spend about 4 months out there, and I was to learn everything that you need to learn out there. And then I'm bored. It doesn't really make sense for me to stick around and do the same thing again and again. It was boring for me. And then I remember around 2007, I started freelancing, not while keeping my job, which is illegal to do, but then again, I can talk about it. Nobody's going to sue me today. So I started freelancing. I rolled out a company called Array Consultancy Services. Not exactly rolled out a company formation, but then again, I used to take assignments online, and I used to take assignments from abroad and everything. And then one day I realized that for a stupid meeting, I had to go for a stupid meeting to the office. And for that, I lost almost twice the amount of my salary. And then I realized it doesn't make sense. If I'm not getting any happiness or learning out of a job, then why the hell I'm gonna stick around out here? I had amazing bosses. They would amazing people, no doubt about it. But the sheer work was not very interesting. I could do much more. And that time I used to crib about it. But now I understand that for people like me, makes the worst employee. because we want more work, we want more responsibility, but the company cannot give you more work and responsibility because you would become very difficult to replace. And company is a very big risk. So having said all of these things, I decided to quit at that point of time. I was obviously waiting for my parents' approval. At the end of the day, still a typical Bengali guy. So parents' approval and and came back to Calcutta and started off. And when things were very nice in Calcutta and everything settled, I was getting bored. I moved on to start our Bombay venture, which was another challenge by itself. And that thing settled. We came back to Calcutta. We started new product wing and new products. The reason we have 10 ventures is purely because we all have this immense hunger for innovation and creation and everything. We could easily sit down and rope in the profits from our existing business, but that's not our aim, and nobody in the organization wants to do that. We want to innovate. We want to create more and more products which help the world, and we are happy doing it. As simple as that. It's not always about the money. Money is the scoreboard. If you're a cricketer, the best batsman would have the highest score in the market. So business is like that. So yeah, at the end of the day, I get immense joy in creating something right from scratch, which helps people. So that's the final call. And yes, it's difficult. It is challenging. It is probably the worst career decision I have taken in my life, but I would not trade it for anything else in the world.
Thank you for answer, sir. So I hope there's no question that's left to be answered. Is there any questions left? No, I hope that's the end. So now I'd like to call upon 𝐓𝐡𝐞 sir for the vote of thanks.
Okay, good evening all. So here I am 𝐓𝐡𝐞, the Assistant Professor of 𝐓𝐡𝐞 Institute of Engineering in Mathematics. So here, good evening all. As all good things come to an end in the life, so is the webinar. So on behalf of IEDC and Startup Club 𝐓𝐶KV, I take this opportunity to purpose vote of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this webinar on product development phases. I thank our speaker, Mr. Arnab Ray. We are really enlightened with your knowledge and presence, and hope you will come to your college with your adequate time. And a special thanks to all the members of IEDC and the Startup Club of 𝐓𝐶KV, and a heartfelt thanks to our students for their active participation. Once again, I thank all for your cordial cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot. Wish you all the best. And should you come across any good idea, I'm always open to help you out. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for joining us. So, guys, we have the Guardian chapter, the Young Alumni chapter, and the Student chapter in our startup club, which has more than 300 plus members. Now, I would like to ask Sonal Jaiswal to drop all our social media handles and the feedback form. Make sure you fill up the feedback form to get the participation certificates. So these are our social media handles. Make sure you join the WhatsApp group, and thank you for joining us. Stay healthy, stay well in this situation. I hope you all have enjoyed, and we will reconnect with you in the next event. Thank you so much. So as a host, I wrap this event. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining.